Hello! Today we're going to make a green lentil soup. This is one of those things that's fairly easy to make. You want to have your carrot, celery, and onion as your base. You want to make sure you have essentially an even amount of carrot and celery. So I have a very large carrot here. I've got 2 stalks of celery and a medium-sized onion, which I'm going to dice. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of butter to saute those in. We're going to use half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper. You can adjust that as you like, however spicy you want it, but I find for someone who doesn't care for things to be overwhelmingly spicy, a half a teaspoon should be great. I've got a lot of garlic because that's a personal preference, but you can cut this down to about 3 cloves of garlic. I've got 5½ cups of chicken stock. This is homemade chicken stock. And what you see here at the top, that is the chicken fat, which is going to lend a really nice velvety smoothness to this. So while it may not look appetizing right here, that is one of the stars of the show. We're going to use 1½ cups of French green lentils. Very, very nutritious, high in iron, so we love that. I'm going to use half a cup of coconut milk, and then we're going to make a butter that is spiced. So this spiced butter, which will be about 3 tablespoons of this butter that we have here, is going to be spiced with red curry powder and ground coriander. For each of them, I'm going to put about a teaspoon, about half a teaspoon. Just depends on how my butter melts, how much water it has in it. But you can go anywhere between half a teaspoon and a full teaspoon on that. So let's get started. All right, so we've actually prepped all of our vegetables. I've cut everything up. We've got our pot on. I'm putting about 2, maybe a little bit more than 2 tablespoons of butter in my pot. It's a nice hot pot right now. And you can use olive oil if you want, or any other fat. Because they're they're lentils, I like to add a little bit of unctuousness with it when it comes to the fat I'm using. So this is one of those few times when I make a soup that I'm actually using butter to saute my vegetables. Butter has a much lower smoke point, which is why I don't typically use it. But in this case, I have no problem with it. So we're going to saute our onions, which I've roughly chopped. And because at the end of all this, I puree it, I don't worry about the size. As long as they're fairly even, it should be fine. Okay, so we'll get that going. And while that's cooking, I'm going to add in my garlic using my garlic press. Just going to keep adding garlic in here until I'm done. Goes fairly quickly. Just going to some garlic cloves are easier to push through than others. This one was a little harder. And you can add less garlic if you'd like. The pan is getting very hot, and we're waiting for our onions to get translucent, which they're almost there. Once they do that, I'm going to add in the carrots and the celery. All right, last one. Clean that off. So we want all of the good bits to get in there. All right, so we'll add our carrots and our celery. We do want these to saute a little bit here. You don't want everything flying all over the place. Whoop. It's not a problem. Oh, I seem to keep doing that. Okay. So while that is cooking, I'm going to add a little bit of the red pepper flakes. You can always add more at the end. I only add a little bit. This combination of vegetables really does give us some great flavor. So it's important that you let them caramelize just a little bit. You see our onions are already translucent. So I think we're on track. This goes really quickly. We're going to add in our lentils, and we're going to add in our chicken stock. And once we do that, we just have to let this cook. Yeah, we're pretty much there. Give it another couple of moments. Okay, adding our lentils, 1.5 cups of lentils. And now our 5.5 cups of chicken stock. Give that a good stir. You'll notice I haven't added any salt yet. I will do that at the end. I want to see what our flavors are like before I do that, so I don't want to over salt this. So we're going to cover this up. Once it comes up to a boil, we're going to bring it down to a simmer. We're going to let it cook for about 30 minutes. Okay, so while we are waiting for our soup to finish up, we're going to melt about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter. And to that, we're going to add our red curry and our ground coriander. So you want to let this melt slowly. Could you do it in the microwave? Sure. But the difference between doing it in the microwave and doing it on the stove, as this is melting, you'll see that the white parts that are there, those are the milk solids, and they will get slightly nutty as we let this melt here. That won't happen in the microwave. So you can do it quickly in the microwave if you want, but you're going to lose a little bit of that nutty experience that the stove is going to bring by browning those milk solids for us. So we're just going to let that do its thing for a moment here. And while that's going, let's take a look at our soup. Doesn't that look pretty? It's almost ready. So once the soup is done, which should be another couple of minutes, you can leave it as it is, and you can have it nice and chunky. It's a texture thing. I prefer this to be smooth. I like it pureed. You can serve it either way. You can puree half of it and leave half of it chunky. The one thing I will tell you that if you do decide to leave it chunky, it's very important that all those vegetables be cut up in a fairly even manner, okay? So that's the only thing to keep in mind there. But that's almost done. Oh, the smell is, it's just delicious. I can't even describe it right now if you haven't smelled lentils cooking. All right, so here's our butter is nearly melted, and if you look very closely, you can see where the milk solids are starting to kind of sizzle, if you will. And that's what we want. So I'm just moving that piece to make sure that it gets fully melted. There we go. And now the milk solids will fall to the bottom of the pan, and you can hear that sizzle. Okay, I'm going to turn my heat down just a little bit, just so I don't burn them. That's what we want. I want that to brown just a little bit, because I'm then going to go ahead and add in my spices. And as I said earlier, you can add as much or as little spice as you want. If you're unsure about these flavors, just do a little bit. Next time, just make a note to put a little bit more. Yeah, so that's looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and add in, this is the red curry. So I added a little bit of the red curry. And then I'm going to now add a little bit of the coriander, about equal amounts. I did eyeball that, I know. It's a quarter of a teaspoon of each. You see, I'm not even using anything to stir it. I'm just rocking my pot a little bit here. And I'm going to leave that for just about another 30 or so seconds. And then I'm going to turn it off until it's time for me to serve. Then I'm going to warm it up just a little bit and then just drizzle it on top of our soup. Looks good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn this off. Okay, our soup is done. It's been cooking for a good 30 minutes. And everything in here is cooked all the way through. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm also going to turn off the hood above here. And I'm going to, as I said, puree this. You can leave it chunky if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and use the burr stick and get it pureed. Okay, we've got this completely pureed, and I'm going to add in about the coconut milk. And the last thing I'm going to do is just stir that in. You can do this by eye if you want to add more or less. Obviously, you start off with less if you think you're going to want to not have too much. But I think, you see how it lightens the color? I think I'm going to add just a little bit more once I finish getting it completely combined. There's a carrot. And don't worry if you don't get everything pureed, not a big deal. Okay, it's just, actually, I think it's good the way it is. That right there is ready for plate up. So we're going to get our butter going just to heat it up again, and that way we can finish this off. All right, let's get this soup plated. So we're going to put in probably about 2 cups total here. It's really hearty, so you can put more if you'd like. We're going to drizzle a little bit of our spiced butter on top. Again, you can put as much or as little as you'd like. I'm going to put a little bit more. And then lastly, just for a little bit of color, we've got some chopped chives. I'll just put a little bit of that on top. And there you have it. This is green lentil soup with a spiced butter. I hope you try this because that is delicious.